log board on legs. "Get out of here, Tom Platt, and leave me fix the tables." He jammed one end of the board into two nicks in the bulwarks, kicked out the leg, and ducked just in time to avoid a swinging blow from the man o' war's man. "And they did that on the Ohio, too, Danny. See?" said Tom Platt, laughing. "Guess they were swivel-eyed then, for it didn't get home, and I know who'll find his boots on the main truck if he don't leave us alone. Haul ahead. I'm busy, can't you see?" "Danny, ye lie on the cable an' sleep all day," said Long Jack. "You're the height o' impidence, an' I'm persuaded you'll corrupt our supercargo in a week." "His name's Harvey," said Dan, waving two strangely shaped knives, "and he'll be worth 5 of any South Boston clam digger 'fore long." He laid the knives tastefully on the table, cocked his head on one side, and admired the effect. "I think it's 42," said a small voice overside, and there was a roar of laughter as another voice answered: "Then my luck's turned fer once, 'cause I'm 45, though I be stung outer all shape." 42 or 45, I've lost count," the small voice said. "It's Penn and Uncle Salters countin' catch. This beats the circus any day," said Dan. "Jest look at them." "Come in," roared Long Jack. "It's wet out yonder, children." 42, ye said. That was Uncle Salters. "I can't again, then," the voice replied meekly. The two dories swung together and bunted into the schooner's side. "Patience o' Jerusalem," snapped Uncle Salters, backing water with a splash. "What possessed a farmer like you to set foot in a boat beats me. You've nigh stove me all up." "I'm sorry, Mr. Salters. I came to sea on account o' nervous dyspepsia. You advised me, I think." "You an' your nervous dyspepsy be drowned in the whale hole," roared Uncle Salters, a fat and tubby little man. "You're comin' down on me agin. Did you say 42 or 45?" "I've forgotten, Mr. Salters. Let's count." "Don't see as it could be 45. I'm 45," said Uncle Salters. "You count keerful, Penn." Disko Troop came out of the cabin. "Salters, you pitch your fish in now at once," he said in the tone of authority. "Don't spoil the catch, Dad," Dan murmured. "Them two are only just beginnin'." "Mother av delight! He's forkin' them one by one," howled Long Tom, as Uncle Salters got to work laboriously, the little man in the other dory counting a line of notches on the gunwale. "That was last week's catch," he said, looking up plaintively, his forefinger where he had left off. Manuel nudged Dan, who darted to the after tackle, and leaning far overside slipped the hook into the stern rope as Manuel made her fast forward. The others pulled gallantly and swung the boat in, man, fish, and all. 1, 2, 4, 9, said Tom Platt, counting with a practiced eye. 47. Penn, you're it. Dan let the after tackle run, and slid him out of the stern onto the deck amid a torrent of his own fish. "Hold on!" roared Uncle Salters, bobbing by the waist. "Hold on! I'm a bit mixed up on my count." He had no time to protest, but was hove inboard and treated like Pennsylvania. 41, said Tom Platt. "Beat by a farmer, Salters, and you sech a sailor, too." "'Tweren't fair count," said he, stumbling out of the pen, "and I'm all stung up to pieces." His thick hands were puffy and mottled purply white. "Some folks will find strawberry bottom," said Dan, addressing the newly risen moon, "if they hev to dive fer it, seems to me." "An' others," said Uncle Salters, "eats the fat o' the land in sloth, an' mocks their own blood kin." "Seat ye! Seat ye!" A voice Harvey had not heard called from the foc'sle. Disko Troop, Tom Platt, Long Jack, and Salters went forward on the word. Little Penn bent above his square deep sea reel and the tangled cod lines. Manuel lay down full length on the deck, and Dan dropped into the hold, where Harvey heard him banging casks with a hammer. "Salt," he said, returning. "Soon as we're through supper we get to dressing down. You'll pitch to Dad. Tom Platt and Dad they stow together, and you'll hear 'em arguin'. We're second half, you and me and Manuel and Penn, the youth and beauty o' the boat." "What's the good o' that?" said Harvey. "I'm hungry." "They'll be through in a minute. Sniff! She smells good to night. Dad ships a good cook ef he do suffer with his brother. It's a full catch to day, ain't it?" He pointed to the pens piled high with cod. "What water did ye hev, Manuel?" "25, father," said the Portuguese, sleepily. "They strike on good an' queek. Some day I show you, Harvey." The moon was beginning to walk on the still sea before the elder men came aft. The cook had no need to cry "second half." Dan and Manuel were down the hatch and at table ere Tom Platt, last and most deliberate of the elders, had finished wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Harvey followed Penn, and sat down before a tin pan of cod's tongues and sounds, mixed with scraps of pork and fried potato, a loaf of hot bread, and some black and powerful coffee. Hungry as they were, they waited while Pennsylvania solemnly asked a blessing. Then they stoked in silence, till Dan drew breath over his tin cup and demanded of Harvey how he felt. "Most full, but there's jest room fer another piece." The cook was a huge jet black negro, and unlike all the negroes Harvey had met, did not talk, contenting himself with smiles and dumb show invitations to eat more. "See, Harvey," said Dan, rapping with his fork on the table. "It's jest as I said. The young and handsome men, like me and Pensy, and you and Manuel, we're second half, and we eats when the first half are through. They're the old fish, and they're mean and humpy, and their stomachs has to be humored, so they come first, which they don't deserve. Ain't that so, doctor?" The cook nodded. "Can't he talk?" said Harvey in a whisper. "'Nough to get along. Not much o' anything we know. His natural tongue's kinder curious. Comes from the innards of Cape Breton, he does, where the farmers speak home-made Scotch. Cape Breton's full o' niggers whose folk run in there durin' our war, and they talk like the farmers, all huffy-chuffy." "That is not Scotch," said Pennsylvania. "That is Gaelic. So I read in a book." "Penn reads a heap. Most of what he says is so, 'cep' when it comes to account o' fish, eh?" "Does your father just let them say how many they've caught without checking them?" said Harvey. "Why, yes. Where's the sense of a man lyin' for a few old cod?" "Was a man once lied for his catch," Manuel put in. "Lied every day. 5, 10, 25 more fish than come he say there was." "Where was that?" said Dan. "None of our folk." "Frenchmen of Anguille." "Ah, those West Shore Frenchmen don't count anyways. Stands to reason they can't count. If you run acrost any of their soft hooks, Harvey, you'll know why," said Dan with an awful contempt. "Always more and never less, every time we come to dress." Long Jack roared down the hatch, and the second half scrambled up at once. The shadow of the masts and rigging, with the never furled riding sail, rolled to and fro on the heaving deck in the moonlight, and the pile of fish by the stern shone like a dump of fluid silver. In the hold there were tramplings and rumblings where Disko Troop and Tom Platt moved among the salt bins. Dan passed Harvey a pitchfork, and led him to the inboard end of the rough table, where Uncle Salters was drumming impatiently with a knife haft. A tub of salt water lay at his feet. "You pitch to Dad and Tom Platt down the hatch, and take keer Uncle Salters don't cut your eye out," said Dan, swinging himself into the hold. "I'll pass salt below." Penn and Manuel stood knee-deep among cod in the pen, flourishing drawn knives. Long Jack, a basket at his feet and mittens on his hands, faced Uncle Salters at the table, and Harvey stared at the pitchfork and the tub. "Hi!" shouted Manuel, stooping to the fish, and bringing one up with a finger under its gill and a finger in its eye. He laid it on the edge of the pen,